we did get Sereca on new streaming software that we're using. So I appreciate everyone that's tuned in the first time. And as is the case with Kiwi Voice, anyway, with these lives, we leave them up on the page permanently, and the numbers do grow, Sereca, over time. We generally have slow burners, is what I would say, in terms of our interviews and posts. So they continue to gain reactions and comments as we go along. And I would encourage you as well to get involved in that conversation if you feel the need. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time to hang out and tell us all about what the Hood is up to.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so we'll jump straight into it. We've got a couple of people on, but that'll grow. Look, firstly, for clarification, could you tell everyone who the Hood is, how it's made up for the people that don't know, what it's all about?
Sure. So the Hood was created initially sorry, just turning my phone off so it doesn't interrupt us. It was originally brought about because of the fact that we had one source of truth, or so we were told in New Zealand anyway. There was a lot of issue happening right at the get-go of the first children's rollout, which was the 12 to 15-year-old age gap. I guess I had been ramping up and in discussions with people for quite some time with the murmuring of that launching. So there was always a little bit of I think I've frozen, so hope you guys can see me. But there we go.
Let's just hold that for a second. Let me just try something quickly. Hang on. Apologies. Let's go audio. Video. No, that's not it. One more thing. Can you see me moving around clearly?
Yeah, I can. You were for a second there with no sound, but now you're back. Fine.
Yeah, that's fine as well. And you can still hear me clearly?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I'm just going to do one other thing with the sound here because you've gone quiet on me again.
Well, Bruce over there says live streaming is all good at his end, so maybe it's just frozen mine.
Okay. All right. I think that's about all I can do. So if it doesn't work, it's not going to work. Let's keep on going. I'm not sure where we got up to there.
All right. Well, it's okay if I'm frozen my end as long as it's working everyone else's end.
Yeah, I can see
Okay, perfect. All good there. Okay, lots of people saying it's okay. So that's cool. So we was up to the Hood. So basically it was born right at the beginning of the murmurs. I guess for me personally, I've been child focused for a few decades. So children obviously have been a huge part of my life. I am a mother myself. And it started to just look a little bit alarming. And so I had family court cases starting to approach me as an advocate, understanding that system, and also some of the weight in which this argument was going to take. Also, I guess I had used PubMed and Science Direct, and I had been somebody who was always looking outside of the norm. My history with my family is such that we are very reactive to pharmaceuticals. So I guess I have a history of questioning things and advocating for my own family as well as everybody else. So when there's alarm bells, I tend to look into it. I'm not a lawyer, but I do have a relatively legal mind, and I guess that was something natural for me. Also, I was in connection with Voices for Freedom. I knew the girls before they started Voices, so there was that connection as well. So I was helping to advocate for families there. And the biggest thing, I guess, that was concerning me at the time was this one narrative, this one safe and effective narrative, when so much was telling us that wasn't the case. And how could it be the case with something that was so new, regardless of it? I mean, for me, I guess it's never been a sense of questioning if there was something that could help. That's fantastic. I mean, I think everybody would be absolutely over the moon if there was a real threat out there and there was something that genuinely was safe and effective. I think we'd all be sitting back and very relaxed about it. But when you are hearing scientists and medical professionals and all types of professionals coming forward and saying, hey, hold on, this doesn't feel right. So I wanted to create a platform in which people could actually read that debate, and it wasn't happening out there. And people were coming to us and saying, "But where do I get this information? And what is this information? Is it reliable information?" So we started to put together a website, and I started working with a few people to start up a community, basically, a community of really intellectual, intelligent discussion and debate, and which the premise really is we're asking questions, and for some reason we're censored, and we're not allowed to, and that sets off alarm bells, I think. If something has nothing to hide, and if something is completely transparent, then questions are actually encouraged, and debate is encouraged, and we are looking at the fact that we have been shut down right from the get-go. That was concerning. So the Hood was born, basically. It wasn't born to be the sole entity backing a court case at the time.
Became that way.
That one there sort of, I would say, felt like it ended up in my lap. And it was a situation, I guess, where I sat and I thought, can I do this? Will I do this? Do I have a choice? And the answer was very clearly no. I didn't have a choice. I couldn't live with myself if I stepped back from that. I think it's that age-old kind of thing of when you can see something going on and you stand back or you sit back, you're basically a part of that. You become
complicit.
Complicit, that was the word I was looking for in my brain, and it wasn't actually coming. Thank you for filling that. So you do. Yeah, thank you. No, complicit was the exact phrase that I was looking for, and I can't be a part of that. I cannot sit back. And so therefore, the Hood was created. The Hood, in conjunction initially with Voices for Freedom loaning us Katie, who was our internal case manager. Katie then became a part of our movement, and we have sort of taken over. This was always the Hood's project. We have collaborated with the families who have brought together the affidavits, and we've been a part of this from the get-go. And I guess our main responsibility as the facilitators, I guess, is what you would call us in terms of the funding. So we are effectively the client equally to the applicants, and so been very invested in this.
Yeah. So I think it's quite a clear distinction to make. It wasn't that there just wasn't something touching on early on in your in that conversation there. It wasn't just the fact that there wasn't the conversation happening in terms of an alternative view to what was being pushed through, obviously mainly government, but mainstream media as well. It was the fact that if that conversation did occur, it was shut down. And there was a number of, and there still is, it's happening all the time. I'm blown away by the fact that we haven't had something censored to this point on Kiwi Voice. I think we've possibly been lucky when I've seen what's happened with a lot of other information sources. So the thing I would say to that, Sereca, is that when that censorship takes place, then it actually has the opposite effect of what they try to do, and it just emboldens people like yourself and myself starting Kiwi Voice to go further and push harder. Would that be a fair statement? Is that how you felt?
I think so. I think there are a certain breed of human out there, and I know that I fall into that myself. I mean, one of my favorite things at high school was debating. I mean, I can argue either side of the argument, and to be honest, I think I often played devil's advocate, and I think that wasn't a different situation here. I was reading and listening to both sides, and I know Katie, our case manager, as I referenced before, one of the statements she's made in one of our webinars is, wouldn't it be fantastic if we were wrong? And we're open to being proven wrong. Yeah. And I think that position where you're sitting in a debate and you're open to being proven wrong, that's the place that everybody should be sitting in. Absolutely. And I find it interesting that you've got a country like Denmark, for example, who is openly admitting that they were wrong and that they have retracted, the push for the kids rollout for this product. They have admitted that, no, we did the best we could at the time. We've realized that that was the wrong decision to make. So we're actually going to accept that. And I think, governments are built with humans making decisions, and it's okay. I mean, we talk about teaching our children that it's okay to make a mistake, and it's also part of the process of learning and evolving to admit that you've made a mistake. Yep. And that you are fallible. And I think this is all we're asking. We're asking for transparency. First of all, how did you make those decisions? Why did you make those decisions? Because you're making those decisions on the behalf of New Zealand, and not only New Zealand, but New Zealand's children. And I think this is the big exclamation mark that we need to keep putting on there. We aren't just making it for the elderly. We're not just making it for the vulnerable who have their own issues and therefore need extra support. We are making this decision for healthy children who have no issue and that also have zero risk for an illness.
Yes.
Now, that responsibility, that weight of that responsibility does not seem to have really been fully emphasised. And the court case, for me, highlighted that.
Yes.
Because, and I don't know if you wanted me to jump into talking about the court case right now, but there was so much reference to adult studies, international studies, data and illnesses that were not relevant here.
Yeah.
And the biggest premise of court in New Zealand that is constantly driven into everybody that has been a part of any type of court case, particularly when it comes to children, is it's not only is the court looking for information, but they're looking for information that is relevant to New Zealand. If you present international data, they say, yeah, but what about here? How is this relevant to here? Is this happening here? And then you break it right down, and you don't even just look at children as an umbrella part of society. You then have to look at every individual child, because they have greater human rights than we do as adults.
Yep.
So, I feel like we've failed as a government, as a country, at addressing the core principles of children. And that's my explanation.
Well put. Yeah. Absolutely, well put. And you're right. It's very rare, and I was surprised to see now was it Sweden or Denmark? I think you mentioned there, regards to actually publicly coming out and saying, yeah, we might have got that wrong. Incredibly unusual in the current political environment worldwide. But obviously, and pretty much everyone I spoke to or speak to around this issue is if they did admit at times that they were wrong, because it's not just this issue, it's absolutely bloody everything. They just never admit any kind of fault. It's always blame shifting. That would actually foster trust from the public. So much more, and everything after that point, it becomes a lot easier for the government and the relations with the people. So it is unusual to see that, and we do need more of it. And going into the court case, Sereca, we might as well jump into some of that. So what are you exactly, again, probably more of a clarification point, and then go take it wherever you like. What exactly are you, was the hood and the people involved trying to achieve with the court case? Like, what's the ideal outcome? What's it all about?
Well, the way the judicial system works is a bit of a tricky one, and I've learned a lot in terms of High Court and now legislation, because that was something that I didn't fully understand before, and I guess for the public and for myself included, you feel like the argument is a very merit-based argument. You feel like, it's pretty obvious this thing isn't necessary. It has a whole lot of issues. We just shouldn't be using this particular product. Unfortunately, because the decision was made in the government and by authoritative bodies, it becomes an argument of legislation and an argument of a decision that was made. And so one of the things that I find difficult to swallow myself as a person is that it's not a merit-based argument in terms of that situation. And that is the restriction of of our judicial system and our governmental system. And I think at one point it was highlighted actually even by the Crown that this is an insufficient way to make a decision and that there are failings here. So I will be very interested to see if they remedy that, because a lot of the court cases, including the Kaitiaki one, we had the lockdown arguments, we had the general arguments about the way in which the entire rollout for adults as well. So when we had for some reason I have this real mental block at the moment for some of the words that I should be using. I think just purely through being tired. But the provisionary, that's what I was looking for, the provisionary decision to roll this vaccine out, because it was done under Section 22, et cetera, and it goes all under the Medicines Act. There was the failing with that provisionary approval, and the fact that provisionary should have been to a limited number of people, basically only the people that were at really high risk. And we'd kind of skipped that. We'd gone in and said, here's a blanket rollout to society, and that happened with the adult product.
But you have to take it in a lot of cases.
Exactly. That was the next progression as well. So
yes.
The thing is if we look at that decision that was made, and that was made by MedSafe's director, which was Mr. James. Now, he is one of the respondents in our case, and probably the key respondent, really, because he is the person who's ultimately made this decision for the children's rollout. Now, he made that mistake, and I will call it a mistake because it was remedied and it was changed in law to say that, this rollout was no longer applicable to just the provisional consent wasn't just for a limited proportion of society. It was actually appropriate to roll out to an entire population. Now, So once they got to the children's rollout, that also then became in effect because that law had changed. Now, we argue that he actually made a mistake at that point as well. And so therefore, when he came to making the decision for the children's rollout, you would expect him to have a lot of emphasis put on careful decision making. Yet, because we have to do a judicial review to do this, and because it is a legislative and a decision making review, we then analyse how that decision was made. And when he made that decision on behalf of MedSafe and medical safety, he actually spent a month, or his team, because apparently he didn't read all of the information, his team reads it. He just circles and rubber stamps things.
Sure.
So again, I argue that I'm not very happy about that either.
Yes.
Especially when we're talking about children. So there was a lot of head shaking in this Crown deliverance. Obviously, you can imagine us sitting there muttering and having a few little things to say under our breaths, quietly and respectfully in court, of course.
Of course.
But anyway, he literally only circled and rubber stamped something and put his signature to it. But that first decision was actually not to roll it out. MedSafe circled no. Now, I guess the decision-making process and what it comes down to now is that MedSafe said no, Mr. James said no, which meant that there was something lacking. And he wanted the advisory board at MAC to review that. Now, that review was 4 hours. It was a 4-hour meeting in which he was not involved, but Pfizer was involved, as well as 9 individuals. Magically, in 4 hours, with no evidence of any new information being given, suddenly this decision that took over a month to decide and no was circled, suddenly this decision has
become a yes.
Has magically become okay, and we got the stamp of okay, yeah, let's go ahead. Now, merit-based, when you start looking at the merit-based argument, which we did present, there wasn't enough safety. There wasn't enough proof that this was even a product we should be considering, let alone the decision-making process in which we say also failed.
Yeah.
So you do have a very powerful argument. You've got an argument where we've also incorporated the government's decision, because obviously MedSafe approved it. That is our authority for approval. But the government ultimately is the one that says, okay, and now we're going to go ahead and we're going to roll it out to everybody. So that's why there was a two-pronged approach there. However, that was a very secondary element to the argument. We did deliver some pretty powerful information, and there were some interesting lacking pieces in the court presentation from the Crown. I noted and was listening to wait to see if they would ever mention the fact that this was novel technology or that this was new, and not once
Not once.
did they
Which
mention.
which seems like a really obvious thing. Are you aware of any other countries? I'm not, but you might be able to tell me. Are you aware of any other countries that actually didn't like stopped it at the source? What I mean by that is they never did the rollout for the pediatric vaccine.
Yes, Sweden never did it.
Oh,
I
sorry. What? No, sorry. The so the 5 to 11-year-olds, or the or the 12 and above, any of those.
Yeah,
Are you aware of any other country that's stopped that?
via a court case.
Well, just never got to the point. Never rolled it out.
Yes, Sweden never rolled it out. I mean, I've got friends in Sweden. It was never available for. I think you can still do it by prescription, and I think that
Okay.
is the argument here too,
Right.
because we get a lot of flack regarding taking away people's right to choose,
That
because
was I
we
was gonna
are.
Yeah, I was gonna play devil's advocate there, and look, I'm supportive of what you guys are doing 100% from a personal perspective. But yeah, for clarity, what's the thinking around that? Or the point that you're bringing up there, that if are you trying to save people from themselves, or it would probably be one way that I would potentially word it, or yeah, I mean, what's to stop people that want to make that decision make it for their children?
I think ultimately the decision to roll it out and the decision to call it safe and effective, which we have huge issue with because it's
Yep.
actually a fraudulent statement,
Hmm.
um, is the key issue. And I guess you put it in a nutshell, I guess, because the thing is we are saying it should never have been rolled out.
Yep.
It shouldn't have been given that approval regardless, because it is lacking in safety data. So yes, I guess there is a certain element of saving people from themselves, if you want to sort of word it that way,
Yeah.
because we are kind of saying, hey, there's a whole lot of information that the public haven't actually been given, they're not privy to, that needs to be looked into. So I guess there's two parts to that argument.
Hmm.
One, we are trying to give those parents that information, the information
Yep.
that they have not been privy to, that has not been available until this court case.
Yep.
So I guess it is sort of saying, well, hang on, we want you to pause. But the thing is if a drug is available out there on the market, it is very unusual that you wouldn't be able to request it. I think the thing is that then the power is yes, we take it off the market in terms of being rolled out and advocated for, but it's unlikely that you wouldn't be able to get that. The thing
Yeah.
is that what we're providing you with is the argument not to, and not to
Yeah.
make it readily available, because we're arguing it is not safe.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. No,
so
that's good clarification. Yeah, absolutely. Are you just on my train of thought before I lose it? Are you aware of anything or concerned at all about the next level down? I think the United States is the only country on the earth so far that's approved the lesser dose for the 6 month to 4 year old. You concerned about any of that, or aware of
terrified,
any of that? Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah. Well, yeah.
terrified.
Other than the
Um,
obvious feelings, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the evidence that we're seeing from that is that the trials were actually worse.
Garbage. Yeah,
Um,
garbage.
I think that the issue that we have with the 5 to 11-year-olds is magnified when you've got the little leagues, and not only that, we're talking about a three-shot.
Yeah, yeah, there was. Yeah, it
So
is. Sorry.
so
Yep.
we're not even. Yeah, it blows my
I get,
mind.
yeah, yeah, me too, 100%. And I've been watching. I follow a lot of American news. I've got a slight obsession with America, but from various reasons, culturally, etc., and been there a number of times. But I was watching some American news this morning, and it was mentioning that the big, it was a big hoo-ha. They were stoked about the fact they were going to get this into the arms of 6 month up, and no one turned up. So apparently, just no one was going ahead with it, which is positive, but it's still, as you say, frightening the fact that they've gone that hard, being the first country on the earth to do it as well. I guess what I'm pushing for on that front, and we'll
Yeah,
carry on, we'll get back to the case, but
yeah.
have you heard anything in your dealings and your conversations about the New Zealand MedSafe or government looking at that at all?
No, but I don't think we're going to. I think for me, and I think I put this on our social media, and again, we talk about censorship. Our social media is so incredibly limited in terms of
I know.
the frequent comment is, we didn't even know about you. We didn't know you were doing this. It's like, yeah, well, no surprises there, because do you know how many mainstream media I saw down in front of the courtroom, for 2 days that we're in High Court? Well, Radio New Zealand, to give them credit, were there for half a day, the first day. And they did report on it, and they did actually put in a few good points. But to be honest, I'm shocked, really, because I would have thought that they'd be there for the finale. Because, to be honest, I mean, that conclusion of the whole case, that last hour that was kind of put through from our side, and to refute a lot of the Crown evidence, and to answer to that would have been the bit that I was expecting people to turn up for.
Sure.
So, yeah, I was really quite shocked about that. I think the thing is that with the 6-month to 4-year-old stuff, that is, for us, that gave us extra motivation, because again, with the booster coming out for that age group as well, because the thing is that, if we can highlight that the information, the research, the decision making was substandard and lacking, then we've automatically stopped the next phase. So this is why this has been so incredibly important.
Gotcha.
But it's important regardless of the outcome as well, because there were so many unanswered questions. And to be fair, I can't believe that we still have unanswered questions after the case.
Right.
Like, that still blows my mind, the fact that, we've asked questions and they haven't actually given us answers for some of them. And the fact that we can sit there and say, okay, so in that 4-hour meeting, what changed your mind?
Yes.
And there to be no minutes,
allocated to that question at all.
But no, but the minutes in the meeting, they have nothing.
Oh, got you. Yeah. Yep.
They literally cannot answer that question. And what blew me away as well is that legally, Mr. James is not required to have to answer or justify his decision.
Right.
That
standard sort of sounding protections, unfortunately, these days, as I learn more and more about these processes. Yeah, it's disappointing.
But we're a democracy. They work for us. Like, it just
well, they're meant
floored me. But anyway, the thing is that what this case does, if people can share it and can actually start looking at the core issues, one, we may get some legislation changes, which obviously are required. Two, we actually get to start putting out questions and highlight the fact that the government, MedSafe, Pharmac, Pfizer, all of these different authorities or companies or corporations, etc., however you want to look at it, are failing us.
Yes.
And I find it incredibly timely that we now see in stuff and all across the media now an addressing of Pfizer's new stuff up, which is to do with blood pressure medicines.
Oh, that one. Yep.
And
again,
right? So, anyone who looks into Pfizer knows that they've got a massive history of fraud and, just criminal behavior, really, when you look at studies, falsifying evidence, paying people, to market things, it's a horrendous history. And the fact that we blindly trust this is incredible. I've frozen double fold here, so but hopefully everyone can still see me. But great, cool. Anyway, so I find it timely and actually helpful in a lot of ways, because there is another whole group of people now feeling affected by the betrayal of MedSafe, of Pharmac, of the government, and of Pfizer, and they are exactly the same principles that we're arguing. That, there's been knowledge held, there's been information given to the government, to MedSafe, that we as people haven't been privy to. Not only has that information been there, but it's been there for a while. And we are not getting transparency from our government. We're not getting transparency from the people that are in charge of our health and our well-being. Now, most of those people on blood pressure medicines are, of a certain age group. And I am not going to belittle anybody being harmed by pharmaceuticals, but they're adults. Their decisions were held within, their own control. When we start breaking it down to children, and when we're responsible as parents and guardians of making a decision for them, that is a weight that is heavy just on our own shoulders, let alone the government's. Because when we then choose to believe a government's recommendation that something is safe and effective, and people really, really do hold on to that, that's when it starts to really sort of get, I will use this purely just, it's the only description I can think of, but that's criminal in my view.
Yeah.
That's not acceptable. Yeah. And I think the shame of the whole thing is that the media is not covering it, because what we're highlighting is such important transparency issues that I believe, we all as people need to gather together really and unite in a powerful voice that says that's not okay, and it's that enough is enough.
Yes, absolutely. And there's multiple reasons that have been talked about a lot and will continue to be talked about as to why the mainstream media has the ways and means of doing things that they do, and the ideologies that they have, obviously the support that they get from certain areas and what that might do. I mean, I always like to say, when there's this part of the conversation, comes up in almost every interview that I do, there are individual good journalists at these large government-funded organisations, for sure. Individual people doing great work, but as an organisation, it's looking pretty rotten. And there's no reason why this wouldn't have been covered. A similar kind of issue, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, it just wouldn't at all now, and specifically with this regime that we've got in place at the moment. So, and that's why the rise of outlets like Kiwi Voice and Independent View and Chantel Baker and even Voices for Freedom, what they're doing with all of their video work, etc. as well. It's the reason they exist. It's the reason they thrive. So, I mean, that's I suppose a positive thing that comes out of it is so many more voices for the people. From my perspective. So, the court case, how do you think it went? And was it a couple of days?
It was. I'm just going to plug you in just before I lose you.
Yeah, sure. Yep, no worries. I might actually make an adjustment while you do that.
Just realising that there is a potential, excuse me for the noise, people. There is a potential, and somebody's decided to do the gardening next door as well, so I hope that's not too noisy for everybody as well.
Sorry, I just missed what you said. I took the opportunity to shoot off and increase my strength.
I've decided to start doing some weed eating next door, so apologies to anybody.
Oh, gotcha. No, I can't pick up any garden tool feedback as of yet, so we should be all good.
Good. I think the court case went exceptionally well, to be fair. I think it's an incredibly hard argument, again, because of that whole judicial review aspect and the fact that the legislations and systems are inadequate to be able to actually speak to this, so it becomes a very black and white argument, and I think it's a really tough one for any judge to actually it really almost does become a personal decision there. Obviously any judge's decision is a personal one based on merit or based on evidence, but the thing is that this one is going to be very political and a tricky one, because obviously you are ruling against a governmental decision, which is an institution in which the courts are a part of. So I guess in terms of how we presented it, in terms of how David, our QC, presented it, amazing. I can take a personal stance there and just say that he was invaluable. Our entire team was invaluable, because he was presenting evidence and documentation that was compiled by a team, and Katie was amazing, Tom amazing, Shelley amazing. So the entire team worked incredibly well. But I have to say, the weight of having David, and as a QC who sits there basically in an equal standing with the judge in terms of experience and status, but that deliverance was so evident as well, in terms of when he was actually speaking. He was methodical, he was very clear, he added humour to parts that helped to make the information that was very, very dry in parts to be sort of digestible and palatable. But he was also very strong in defending where he needed to be where it needed to be defended, and there were a few cases in which he was slightly disrespected by his learned colleagues, and he wore that really well. And to be honest, for a man who's of such a status in his career, he's an incredibly humble and very down to earth person. I honestly couldn't rate our team any better. They're an enjoyable team to actually work with as well. And the fact that they respected our own, opinions and took on board arguments that we actually made as well, because most of us are living this in a different way in which they are. I mean, this is a job for them, but that's actually what I give them credit for, is that they weren't just professionals arguing a case here. They really felt this case and they believed in this case. And I think that was very evident. I think also he was very strong in the way he defended the experts. The crowd tried to discredit, and Pfizer's representation in court tried to discredit, like somebody here, Bruce, is talking about Robert Malone, and yes, I do know why you're mentioning him, Bruce, because they really tried to take the creator of this original technology down, like, oh yeah, but he didn't work on this vaccine, so therefore he had no part in this failed technology kind of thing. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, that was really weak. Like, okay, yes. you just had to do your bit, but that was weak. If you start something from grassroots, you kind of know where it came from, and you know where it's going, and you know its limitations. So I think the fact that the way in which David responded to that, and also, Dr. Gert Vandenbosch, trying to call him just a veterinarian. Well, that was the start of his career. It's certainly not where he's at now. And I'm not going to put down vets either.
Exactly. How difficult a medical profession would that be? I always thought, I don't know, but I've always thought the vets would be a far more difficult training than humans, because there's a million more variables to it potentially.
There is, and funnily enough, I think that a lot of vets are actually more cautious with animals than a lot of medical professionals are with humans. Like they actually... I remember just getting a kitten, and the vet that I was dealing with, it was like, oh no, but we don't like to over medicate them, and we don't like to do this, and I'm like, where is this in human? Like,
yeah, exactly, yeah. Look, we had Matthew Haig on the show a few weeks back to discuss the mandate case for the police and defence force. And the reason I bring that up is because he was also talking about the judicial review process and the limitations of that. It was just something that was in my head from what you were talking about before, and how it does very much put a very strict limitation on what you can do in terms of getting things overturned, or the way that you can actually fight the legal battle. So it's acknowledging that I understand what you're talking about there in terms of the case. So
I think the thing is that to be able to do the fact that there are so many judicial reviews happening shows that fundamentally prior to the actual decision making is flawed, and that is the issue, and that was highlighted actually by the Crown. The Crown actually stating that the step-by-step requirements for approving something. This to me does not excuse Mr. James. It doesn't excuse the situation, because the thing is you've still got the power to improve it. You still have the power to demand more evidence. You still have the power to ask for answers or information that is not there. And you also have a responsibility to the people to have a paper trail to show that.
Yes.
It feels almost like it was very carefully done, so that there wasn't one.
That 4-hour meeting you talk about is a super interesting one, and that's going to sort of spin around in my head for a while now, I think, because you said the Pfizer representatives in there.
Yes, because they're there to answer the questions of the panel, you see. Right. And the thing is, if they're going to be asked questions and then give answers to a panel, then that needed to have been recorded, because there wasn't any record of new information to be given. So I honestly leaves me speechless, and I think it leaves us all speechless, like just sitting there, just shaking your head, going, "This isn't okay,"
It really isn't. What's the when are you looking to get? Because it's all the done and dusted. The hearing's done and dusted, correct? Is that
Yep,
right?
Monday, Tuesday done.
Okay, so when are we looking to get some idea of outcomes or feedback or both?
Sorry, I was just reading. Bruce has got so many comments in
Oh, he's
there.
an active, awesome dude. He's an active Kiwi Voice follower. I haven't actually got comments on, and I've done that.
Oh, don't you?
But that's
Sorry.
okay. We'll have a look at.
But no, he was just talking
That's
about
all
how
right.
no, no corruption went on. The thing is, Bruce, we don't.
Yeah,
We have no idea what went on in that meeting, and who was in that meeting is redacted from the majority of us as well.
yeah.
So we're not going to know. Anyway, so down to the decision. Well, the poor judge again. I do actually feel for that man because he has so much paperwork to read through.
Right.
But what I do commend him for is the observation is that he's very interested and that he is going to go over that paperwork really, really carefully. He was very interested in asking questions of our evidence, of our experts. If he didn't feel that he understood something, he was very quick to get David to clarify that and understand the argument. So I don't personally know how much time is allocated outside of courtroom appearances, but I know that it is going to take some time. So we have weeks to wait.
Okay.
High court decisions aren't made quickly. What the judge did say is that he understood that there was urgency to this and that he recognised that. But what is urgent to your everyday person of, like, let's get this done and dusted in a couple of days. It's not urgent in a high court situation. So we are looking at, I think we would be lucky to have, 3 or 4 weeks. I think we're looking at much, much longer. But your guess is as good as mine, honestly.
Gotcha.
I really
Well,
don't know.
let's. I'd love to keep in touch and get an update or a few words when we get to that point. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
And look, simply, we'll get close to closing it off there, Sereca. I guess the whole thing, put simply from the Kiwi Voice perspective about what you guys are doing, we're proud of you. And when I say we, there's 2 of us at Kiwi Voice. We're proud of you guys and what you're all doing. Absolutely. The simple fact of the matter is, when you look at the risk versus the benefit of something that's still regarded as experimental, and the risk to the children is basically zero. There is no need for this carry on, so we really, really do appreciate the work that you're doing. If people want to find out more and support you guys, where do they go?
So we go to the Hood. So it is www.thehoodnz.com.
Okay.
And we haven't actually, first of all, I like to make sure that I thank everybody for their support because, again, we are community funded and we wouldn't have been able to do this without, yes, our legal team, but also everybody else. There is no way we could fund it. I don't take any form of wage or subsidy or anything. This is completely voluntary. And for the last serious amount of time, a lot of the time from everybody else has been as well, hugely discounted. And we get a lot of critique out there about how much this is costing us. And again, is all relative. We're talking about a high court case and the costs are extreme. Like if I just look at even the printing of those mounds of paper that we had to actually, I mean, everything's expensive. But our team, our experts, and we had 9 experts that were incredible. They had to go through months of reports, then they had to reply to reports. So it was hugely costly. And, overseas cases have cost literally 3 to 4 times what we are actually doing ours for. And they're really impressed with that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I hate to think what the government's paying for their legal team. But
it's only our money, don't worry about it.
Exactly, right? So anyway, we aren't actually there with the funding yet. And please be assured that nothing is being wasted. Nothing is being used frivolously because we have had obviously a lot of trolls coming on and calling us grifters, which is a term that really I try not to let affect me, but really does, winds me up. because that is not the case at all. And obviously it's said for effect and to put doubt where there is actually a strong community of people with really genuine intentions. So we haven't reached that. So donations still are really actually required because...
And that's through the website. They can find out how to donate
Yep.
through the website?
Yep, there's a donate button right there, or hit the menu bar and you'll find a donate portion there. There's a few people who've been having problems with the online form, which is credit card based. There's also our account number there as well. So yeah, we are very real people, like you say, team of two. Behind the hood is the company that we formed, Nicola and I, which is purely just for this case. So there's been critique there as well. It's a bit tiring, to be honest.
Yeah, I can completely understand that. Look, and I'm getting alerts that my phone battery is starting to fail on us. So that's a good thing. That's all right. No biggie. So we'll chuck a link to the Hood NZ up in the description of this video. Thanks heaps for taking the time, Sereca. We've done 45 minutes already. If you're active on Facebook, by all means, get amongst those comments, which is what I'll do once I've finished here and posted it up. It's been awesome to talking with you and meeting you, and yeah, let's keep in touch, and we'll do it again a bit further down the track when developments come forth.
Awesome. Just to let you know too that because our reach is really quite small, you almost have to actively go onto our social media because there is a lot of updates that they don't actually get. People say, why haven't you said this? What haven't you done? I'm like, well, you have to go and have a look, unfortunately. Sorry, because you're probably not going to find it in your feed. So that sharing of this movement, if you like, is really crucial from everybody's individual places. Even if you can't donate, that is another way to really help, I guess, all of us who are doing these things, is to go onto our social media and follow and actively go in to see...
Yeah, 100%. Now, shadow banning is absolutely a thing. It's obvious happening when you see the number of followers versus the number of engagements, etc. The example I always use is I saw, look, I'm not necessarily a right-wing person, but I was looking at Candace Owens' Facebook page. She's got 450,000 followers, and her posts get almost no engagement. So, those kind of things do crop up. Understandably happening. I know some places where the Hood NZ website is actually blocked in certain companies, etc. I've seen myself personally.
Wow.
So 100%.
I did not know that.
It happened. It's happened, or it's the way it is at the moment. Unfortunately, I can let you know a bit more about that offline. But yeah, we'll chuck the link for the website in there. Get amongst the Hood NZ Facebook page and all the other socials that are listed on their website. And if it's something you believe in and support, share that shit around for sure. And the donate option is there as well. So we'll close it off there. Thanks heaps, Sereca. It's been awesome talking to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Lucas.
Thank you all.